Welcome, little dreamers. Tonight we have a very special story just for you. Goodnight, Little Lamb. It's a gentle tale about a tiny lamb exploring her meadow at sunset, saying goodnight to her animal friends, and finally curling up beneath the stars for the dreamiest sleep. So snuggle in, get cozy under your blanket, take a deep breath, and let the soft sounds of the story guide you toward a night full of sweet dreams. The meadow was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. Golden light stretched across the grass, making each blade sparkle as though it had been painted with warm honey. The little lamb trotted slowly through the tall meadow flowers, her small hooves pressing into the earth with the quietest of taps. She had spent the whole day playing, running, and bouncing about, but now the world was slowing down, and so was she. The air smelled sweet, filled with the gentle perfume of wild lavender and clover. Butterflies, their wings painted in soft oranges and yellows, drifted lazily from flower to flower. The lamb stopped to watch them. Their wings fluttered so quietly, it was almost like they were waving goodnight before folding themselves away in the flowers for sleep. All around the meadow, the lamb could hear the hush of evening. The breeze whispered softly through the tall grass, carrying with it the faintest song of crickets beginning to chirp. It was the kind of sound that made her eyelids feel heavy, as if even the meadow was reminding her that bedtime was coming. The little lamb lifted her head toward the sky. The sun was now just a round ball of orange sinking behind the distant hills. The sky had changed from bright blue to soft pink, and soon it would turn deep purple. She blinked slowly, soaking it all in. The end of the day always felt magical to her, like the whole world was getting cozy at the same time. She found her favorite spot near a patch of daisies and laid down for a moment. The flowers swayed gently above her, and she pressed her soft wool against the ground. The earth felt warm where the sun had touched it all afternoon, and she wriggled slightly to feel the comfort of it beneath her. The lamb let out a little sigh. It wasn't the tired sigh of someone who had worked too hard, but the kind of sigh that said, "Yes, this is where I belong." From her spot, she could still see the meadow buzzing with its gentle evening life. A pair of grasshoppers leapt slowly across the grass, their movement slower now than in the bright, busy morning. A small bird gave one last trill before tucking itself into a nest nearby. The lamb thought it sounded like the bird was saying goodnight. She closed her eyes for just a moment and listened. The sound of the crickets, the whispering grass, the faraway call of a bird, it all came together like a lullaby made just for her. She thought about how safe she felt here in the meadow, how warm the sun had been on her back during the day, and how soft the earth was beneath her now. The little lamb opened her eyes once more, just in time to see the last sliver of sun disappear behind the hills. The sky was changing quickly now, and the shadows of the meadow stretched long and cool. She gave a tiny yawn and stood up again, her legs wobbling just a little with sleepiness. It was almost time to say goodnight to her friends in the meadow. Almost time to tuck herself into the coziest spot she could find. But for now, she took one last look around at the glowing daisies, the quiet butterflies, and the gentle evening breeze that wrapped her like a blanket. The lamb gave another soft sigh and whispered, almost to herself, "Good night, meadow. I'll see you in the morning." And with that, she turned slowly toward the next part of her evening adventure, the golden light of the day fading into the dreamy purple of night. The little lamb wandered slowly across the meadow, her soft hooves making gentle thuds against the earth. The sun had slipped lower now, and the air had turned cool, with the faint smell of evening dew. A hush had fallen across the meadow, but it wasn't the kind of hush that meant emptiness. It was the soft, expectant quiet of bedtime, when every living creature prepares to rest. As the lamb trotted along, she saw a cluster of rabbits in the clover patch. Their long ears twitched as they bent their noses to the ground, nibbling carefully at the sweet green leaves. The lamb padded closer and watched them for a while. One of the rabbits lifted its head, its fur as soft and gray as the clouds drifting above. It blinked at the lamb with kind eyes and then twitched its nose as if to say, "Good night, little lamb." The lamb lowered her head in reply, whispering softly, "Good night, rabbits." The words felt cozy on her tongue, like a part of a ritual that connected her to the meadow. She stood quietly, watching the rabbits tuck themselves close together, the little ones leaning against their mother's warm side. Their tiny eyes began to close, and the lamb felt her own eyelids grow heavier, just watching them settle in. Not far away, a flock of birds had gathered on the branches of a tall oak tree. Their feathers fluffed up against the evening breeze. They huddled close, chirping their final notes before bedtime. The sound was not loud or hurried. It was soft, like a lullaby. A sparrow tilted its head, looked down at the lamb below, and gave a single gentle tweet. The lamb smiled, thinking that the birds too were saying their nighttime farewells. "Good night, little birds," the lamb whispered. The words floated up through the branches like a soft breeze, and the birds answered with the faint rustle of feathers as they tucked their heads under their wings. The lamb continued on, her ears twitching to catch every sound of the meadow winding down for the night. From a distance, she heard the low, steady hum of bees. Following the sound, she found a hive nestled among the flowers. The bees were finishing their work for the day, their tiny bodies buzzing faintly as they returned home. One by one, they disappeared into the hive's golden entrance, carrying the last drops of nectar they had gathered before the sun set. The lamb stood watching them until the buzzing slowed, fading into a calm, steady hum. "Good night, bees," she said softly, her voice almost like a whisper carried by the wind. She thought she heard a tiny buzz in reply, quiet and peaceful, as if even the bees were ready to dream. The meadow felt alive, but in a different way than it did during the bright hours of the day. Instead of running and playing, every creature was settling down, drawing closer to warmth, to safety, to the dream world that came with night. The lamb could feel the change all around her, an invisible thread that tied her to every small life in the meadow, each one saying goodnight in their own way. Her heart felt full and calm. She realized that even though the meadow was wide and filled with creatures big and small, none of them were truly alone. At the end of each day, they all shared the same soft ritual, finding a place of comfort, whispering goodnight, and drifting into peaceful sleep. The little lamb gave a small yawn, stretching her legs and shaking her fluffy coat. She looked back once more at the rabbits nestled in their clover, the birds fluffed in the branches, and the bees humming softly in their hive. They were all part of her world, her family of the meadow. "Good night, my friends," she whispered, and this time her words carried further, lifted on the cool evening air, brushing over the meadow like a blessing. She smiled to herself, her wool warm against the night breeze, and turned her gaze toward the distant stream, where the sound of water called like a lullaby, waiting to be heard. And so, with her heart as calm as the meadow around her, the little lamb padded softly toward the stream, ready for the next gentle part of her bedtime journey. The little lamb followed the faint sound of water, her ears twitching at every ripple that carried through the evening air. The meadow grass brushed softly against her wool as she walked, tickling her sides like a mother's hand. With each step, the sound of water grew clearer, a gentle trickle here, a bubbling splash there, until finally she reached the edge of the stream that wound its way through the meadow. The stream sparkled in the fading light. What had been golden from the sun just moments ago was now painted with soft purples and silvers from the early night sky. The water moved slowly in some places, smooth and glassy, and faster in others where it spilled over small stones and pebbles. The lamb leaned closer and dipped her nose near the cool surface, watching the ripples spread out like tiny circles that danced across the stream. She stood very still and listened. The stream was singing its bedtime song. It wasn't loud, like the noises she sometimes heard in the daytime when the world was busy. No, this was a soft, steady music, as if the water itself was humming the meadow to sleep. The trickle over the rocks made a gentle tink, tink, tink sound, while the deeper water gave a soothing shh, 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 like a whisper asking everyone to rest. The lamb let out a small sigh, her chest rising and falling in rhythm with the stream. She thought about how every creature she had said goodnight to, the rabbits, the birds, the bees, might also hear this same lullaby and drift into dreams. The thought made her wool feel even warmer, as if the whole meadow was wrapped together in one big blanket of sound. On the far side of the stream, tall reeds swayed back and forth, dipping their tips into the moving water. The lamb watched as fireflies floated gently above the reeds, their tiny lights glowing and fading, glowing and fading, as if they too were breathing along with the lullaby. She blinked slowly, almost in time with their flickering light, her body growing heavier with sleepiness. She took a careful step closer, placing her hooves on a flat stone at the edge of the bank. The stone was smooth and cool from the water splashing nearby. She leaned down and took a sip. The stream's water was fresh and crisp, colder than the air, and it slid down her throat like a calming drink before bed. The lamb pulled back, licking a tiny drop of water from her lips. "Thank you, little stream," she whispered. "Your song is beautiful." The stream answered only with more rippling sounds, like laughter softened into music. She liked to imagine it was alive and that its voice was a gift for anyone who was willing to listen. Nearby, a frog gave a soft croak, and then another, joining the water's melody. Somewhere upstream, she could hear the faint plop of a fish slipping below the surface. None of it was startling or noisy. It all belonged to the stream's gentle orchestra. The lamb curled her legs beneath her and sat down on the grassy edge, just close enough to feel the mist on her wool. She rested her chin on her front hooves and closed her eyes, breathing slowly as she listened to the song. For a moment, she thought she might fall asleep right there beside the stream, lulled by its endless lullaby. But then, through her heavy eyelids, she noticed something above her. The sky was deepening, fading from purple into a soft midnight blue. A single point of light shone faintly above the meadow, a star, the very first one of the night. The little lamb stood up again, giving herself a small shake. She smiled at the stream as if promising she'd come back to listen another night. Then, with her heart as calm as the water's flow, she turned her gaze upward to the bright star, waiting to guide her deeper into the evening. And so the lamb left the stream song behind her, though its gentle hum still echoed in her mind, carrying her softly toward the next part of her bedtime journey. The little lamb lifted her eyes toward the sky. The last rays of the sun had slipped away beyond the hills, leaving behind a wide canvas of purples, pinks, and soft blues. The meadow was wrapped in twilight now, that magical in-between time when day becomes night and everything seems to glow with a quiet kind of wonder. As she gazed upward, the lamb noticed something new. There, just above the horizon, a single star twinkled softly. It was faint at first, like a candle hidden far away, but with every passing moment, it grew brighter, clearer, until it shone like a tiny lantern hung high in the heavens. The lamb's ears twitched as she stood very still. It always felt special to see the first star appear. She wondered if the star had chosen this very moment to peek out just for her. Perhaps it was watching over the meadow, keeping every creature safe as night settled in. The lamb tilted her head and whispered, "Hello, little star." Her voice was quiet, like a secret carried only between her and the sky. She blinked slowly, her wool brushing softly against the grass as a cool evening breeze drifted by. The first star shimmered back at her, twinkling gently as though it was winking in reply. The lamb's heart filled with warmth. She liked to imagine that each star was a friend, keeping the world bright even in the deepest darkness. Her grandmother once told her that you could make a wish on the very first star of the night. The lamb thought carefully about what she wanted to wish for. She could wish for something exciting, like a field full of endless clover to nibble on, or perhaps a mountain of soft grass to roll in. But as she stood there in the quiet meadow, with the cool breeze brushing her wool and the crickets chirping their lullabies, she realized she already had everything she needed. So instead, the lamb made a different kind of wish. She closed her eyes, pressed her soft nose against her hooves, and whispered, "I wish for everything to stay as cozy and safe as it is right now." When she opened her eyes again, the star seemed to sparkle even more brightly, as if it had heard her and agreed. Her heart felt calm, wrapped in the gentle peace of the meadow and the sky above. Around her, the world was growing sleepier. The rabbits in the clover had curled into a warm bundle, the birds in the oak tree had tucked their heads beneath their wings, and the bees had hushed into dreams inside their hive. Even the stream behind her had softened into a faint whisper, as though it too had grown tired. The lamb yawned, a big, slow yawn that made her eyes water just a little. She blinked them clear again and looked once more at the sky. More stars were beginning to appear now, 2, 3, then 5, until the whole sky began to sparkle faintly. It was as though the night was putting on a soft blanket, embroidered with tiny, glowing lights. But to the lamb, the first star was still the most special. It was the one that had guided her into the night, the one she had shared her quiet wish with. She gave a little nod to the star, her way of saying thank you, before lowering her gaze back to the meadow. Her legs felt heavy now, her wool thick with the warmth of the evening air. It was almost time to rest, almost time to snuggle into her favorite patch of grass beneath the old oak tree and let sleep find her. The lamb took one last look at the star, shimmering softly in the darkening sky. "Good night, little star," she whispered. And as she turned toward the oak, she felt the whole meadow echo the words, carrying her gently into the final part of her journey, the dreamiest sleep of all. The little lamb walked slowly back across the meadow, her hooves pressing softly into the cool grass. The sky above her was now a deep, velvety blue, sprinkled with 1,000 tiny stars. They glittered quietly, like gentle lanterns hanging in the heavens, and the lamb felt as though each one was smiling down at her. It smiled. Ahead stood the old oak tree, its wide branches stretching protectively over the meadow. The lamb loved this tree. It was strong, steady, and always seemed to offer her the coziest place to rest. Beneath its branches, the grass grew thick and soft, like a natural blanket waiting just for her. She found her favorite patch near the roots and lowered herself onto the ground. The earth was cool, but the thick wool of her coat kept her warm. She wriggled a little, tucking her legs beneath her body until she felt perfectly snug. The grass tickled her sides gently, and the breeze whispered around the tree, brushing over her like a lullaby. The meadow around her was hushed now. The rabbits had gone quiet in their clover patch, the birds had tucked their heads under their wings, and the bees were dreaming inside their hive. Even the stream's song had softened, its bubbling water reduced to the faintest hush, as though the whole meadow was breathing slowly in its sleep. The lamb closed her eyes for a moment and listened. She could hear the steady chirping of crickets, the occasional soft croak of a frog, and the rustling leaves of the oak above her. None of the sounds were loud or busy. They were soft, steady, and soothing, the kind of sounds that filled her heart with peace. She let out a small sigh, her body sinking deeper into the grass. "Good night, Meadow," she whispered softly. Her words floated into the cool night air, wrapping themselves around the sleeping creatures nearby. Her eyes grew heavy, and just before she drifted into dreams, she whispered again, "Good night, little star. Good night, little world. Good night, little lamb." The stars twinkled faintly above, as if they were answering her with their own quiet good night. The oak tree swayed gently, the breeze wrapping her like a blanket, and the meadow seemed to hush just a little more, waiting for her to slip into sleep. And there, under the old oak tree, the little lamb's breathing grew slow and steady. Her soft wool glowed faintly in the starlight, her body curled in safety, her dreams already beginning. The meadow whispered one last lullaby, and then all was still. "Good night, little lamb." So the little lamb drifted into peaceful sleep, her dreams safe beneath the stars. Now it's your turn to rest, little one. Close your eyes, feel warm and cozy, and let your own dreams carry you gently through the night. Good night, sweet dreamer. Good night.